Hey everybody, today we're talking about becoming a lender and loaning money. My name is Isaiah Goodman, Chief Financial Advocate at Becoming Financial. So we've all had a friend or been that friend who needs money when something comes up or an opportunity is arising. So today I wanted to talk about what is it like to be on the lending side. If we're going to loan money or lend money to somebody else, what are some things you want to think about and or consider when giving that money out? Some of the first things I wanted to talk about was the types of loans or the way that you're lending the money. One of the newest and most popular is through microloans. So if you've never heard of Kiva.org, I'd highly recommend it. I'm not partnering with them, I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but use them personally, have donated a ton of money and done some microloans to help people that need it in other countries. So for example, here in America, 25 bucks, 50 bucks might not be able to get you a ton. In other parts of the world, $50 could get you a goat, and that goat could be your business where you can now make milk and cheese and sell that to feed your family. These people will pay back interest on the microloan. It might not be huge, but you've helped them and earned a little bit of money. So a really, really good example of a way to lend money and get a good return and do a good thing. Obviously, another type of loan is just a business loan to a friend or family member, or even just a personal loan. So it's somebody that you lend them money, and there's some sort of interest rate or payment terms in payback. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the things to consider in that. There's additional online platforms where you can do business loans or peer-to-peer lending, again, for some sort of interest. And the last thing would be venture capital. So a little bit different or a twist on a loan. You're obviously lending money, but you're hoping for a return in the form of equity. You want the business to grow, you want the venture to do well, and your payback will be dividends or compensation in the form of growth of the company. So those are a couple ways that we can lend money. Now, if you're on the lending side, I wanted to talk about a couple things to think about before you're giving the money out or while you're giving the money out to consider, how am I going to charge this and how am I going to get this money back? So number one is this a one-time event or is this a ongoing sort of thing that could be habitual? So we've all been in a situation where there's an emergency, something happens, we need money now. Well, in that case, if your best friend needs money, it's an emergency, and it's the only time they've ever asked you for it, you might want to help them out, right? It's your best friend. If it's something that comes up every single month, is this something that you want to perpetuate? Is this an ongoing habitual thing? Maybe you start to work with this person on, hey, I've lent you $100 for the last 6 months in a row. Maybe we start to figure out how to work on your budget. Go watch some of Isaiah Goodman's videos and learn about money so that we don't have to do this in the future. Or is it going to be an ongoing sort of supplement to business? If the business is always needing cash for you to supplement what they're doing, how can you help them out? Maybe give them a bigger endowment of money one time to get them out of this rut. So just things to think about. Is it a one-time emergency? Is it habitual? Is it ongoing? And are you okay with that? If it's a one-time thing, you'll be okay with it, great. If it's habitual and you don't want to be in that space, you have to let that person or that entity know. Next big thing, what is the timeline? So sort of related, is it going to be a payment plan? Is it going to be a one-time lump sum? If I lend $10,000 to a business, are they going to pay me back over the next 2 years at 10% interest, and they're going to pay me back a little bit every month? Or will they pay me back quarterly or annually? Being really clear about when do I want this money, how am I going to pay it back, in negotiating with, hey, if I lend this money, how am I going to get paid back and maybe use it in other purposes? So really big things to think about is what are the timelines and the payment terms in terms of what you're getting back. Now, I won't go too deep into it, but there's a difference between annual percentage rate and annual percentage yield, APR, APY. So annual percentage rate might say 10%, right? Annual percentage yield will be a little bit different based on how often that compounds. So if your interest compounds annually every 12 months, APR will equal APY, exactly 10%. If your interest rate compounds daily, well, the yield's going to be a lot higher, right? Because it's compounding that 10% of whatever that balance is every day. So if you're lending that money, think about, do I want this to be a compound interest that if I don't get my money back right away, it's going to compound? Or am I okay with just saying, hey, it's a flat 8%, pay me back next year, and I'll just trust that you'll do one payment at a flat 8% above whatever I loaned? Again, thinking about if you're in the lending situation, what are you comfortable with and what would you prefer? Last thing is, what sort of interest rate or return are you going to get? I'd recommend, if you're giving a loan out, you want to think about what's the time value of money. So again, this is another complicated calculation. I'm not going to do it all here, but basically, if I could invest, $10,000 and get a 5% interest rate somewhere else over the next couple of years, if I invest that $10,000 or I lend it to somebody, what sort of interest rate do I have to get, and what sort of time frame to either make it equivalent or greater? So if I'm looking at two similar investments, one's $10,000 at 5% interest over 2 years, one's $10,000 at 4% interest over 6 months, which one do I want? Well, if I'm in that boat, I'd want the one that's a shorter time frame, because now I can get 4% back in 6 months. Now I've got another whole 18 months or a year and a half to invest again or do something else, right? So that's what we're thinking of with the time value of money. So really important in thinking about your investment, what sort of interest rate am I going to get? If you're only getting 1%, 2% interest, well, it might not make sense over the long term. If it's a 10-year loan, you're not going to even beat inflation. Not a smart decision. If it's a 20% interest or some sort of large endowment back to you, then it could be a little bit better payoff, and you're okay with that. The other big thing, kind of the venture capital side of things, is what percent equity. So if you work with a business owner, their business is valued at $100,000, and you do that $10,000 investment, you now own 10% of that company, right? The company grows, it's worth $1 million. You now have a stake or ownership in that company at $100,000. Probably talked about this before. If you guys have seen some of the other videos, talking about a piece of the pie with investments and stock. Similar sort of concept there. When it gets into the initial public offering and you have big companies offering their stock on the exchange, it's just millions and millions of shares, right? If it's a small business or a growing startup, those equity ownership pieces is how those companies get going. So maybe that's your play, is if you give somebody a small business loan, you get a percentage ownership in the company takes off, now you own a bigger piece of the pie that has now grown. So all things to consider when you're investing or lending money as a type of way to grow your dollars or help a friend out. You want to think about the time frame, you want to think if it's a habit or a one-time sort of thing, and you want to think about your return and how you're going to get paid back.